Hello, friends of the internet. Welcome to kind of a new setup for me. I don't know if I'm going to be recording here from now on, but kind of wanted to try it and also fits what I'm going to be doing. I saw The Rise of Skywalker and I have opinions. Surprise! But more importantly, I recorded some of my predictions before I went and saw the movie, but unfortunately I was too lazy to actually get it edited and sent out before the movie, came out. So you're just gonna have to take my word for it that I recorded that and I have it and I'm gonna show it to you. But today I'm gonna be reacting to kind of my predictions and how they matched up with reality and what I thought was better about each scenario. Let's begin. So let's start with Suave Man Poe Dameron. Now clearly from The Last Jedi, Poe has been set up to become the new leader of the Resistance, and I think he's going to execute that. And a lot of his character I think is going to be intertwined with Finn. So I will get more into kind of that kind of stuff when I discuss Finn next. Specifically just around Poe, I think that he's gonna sit there and have to fight his base instincts to just play the hero the entire time and actually think from a logistic standpoint, and they're gonna really show that he's capable of doing that. Where I think this whole movie's climax is gonna be when they end up going back to Jakku. I mean, that's at least where I'm predicting to kind of get that full circle thing of that's where Rey's from. It's gonna be a big deal. And ultimately for Rey to continue on her own individual mission that's gonna obviously be the fate of the galaxy, Poe's gonna have to do the same thing that happened in The Last Jedi of he's gonna make a tactical decision to have his people hold the line to save the lives of the many and just kill the few. Again, it's a very known tactic of diversions almost in a lot of military situations. So I think that's the kind of thing that Poe's gonna do at the end of this to show his growth as a character of no, now I'm the leader and I understand that a single individual can't solve this. And so I'm gonna do what's best for the whole. And it's gonna be characterized by the fact that I think he's gonna go down along with maybe a few of the other big time heroes. And I also will add a little bit more emotional punch that maybe Star Wars traditionally doesn't have, losing kind of its charismatic hero, but don't worry, the Resistance will be covered. Gosh, I got Poe wrong. That's for sure. Poe didn't have any development. Poe was still, gunslinging away. I'm the guy. We're still gonna do this. The only moment that kind of relates to character growth is him kind of saying, I can't do this on my own. I need Finn as my co-general, which I think is a nice moment. But beyond that, Poe seems to be Poe still. Yeah, like I don't see anything different between where Poe started this trilogy and where Poe is now. I also really got wrong the emotional punch thing from him. But whatever, you can't get everything right. I was stupid. He's probably the least important of the important characters, so it's fine. Moving on. Finn. I think Finn's character arc is going to be probably the second most pivotal thing in this film. Obviously, I think Rey is still the driving force, the main character, the main person that we are invested in this entire franchise. But Poe, I think Rose's prediction / reason for saving him in The Last Jedi is going to pay off. So while it may not have been my favorite part of The Last Jedi, ultimately the words that she said of we need people now, of we need those heroes, and you saw how some people reacted when they saw him. It's like, you're Finn, you're the person that turned against the First Order. I think he's going to become the propaganda for the Resistance. Of he's going to be the face. He's going to have so much influence that I think that's ultimately what's going to win them the day. Is through Finn's leadership and actions, he's going to turn a lot of the First Order on itself, and so it'll start collapsing from within, and that's how they start gaining more people into the Resistance, as people are leaving the First Order, and people who weren't involved at all are going to say, hey, if Finn could turn on the First Order, I can join the Resistance and help win this fight for our freedom. So I think that's going to be a big deal. I think ultimately with Poe's sacrifice, I think that's going to be very hard for Finn to handle. He's going to want to stay with Poe, but they're going to say, no, you have to leave. I also think a big moment for him is going to be letting go of Rey. That seems to be the only reason he stayed around in episodes 7 and 8, was he kept going back for Rey, and kind of similar to what Han Solo did in the original. If he was only staying because of Luke, he's going to eventually find himself in this leadership position and realize how valuable and how much more he is. And so him kind of, whatever, either infatuation or debt or something like that he thinks he owes to Rey, he'll get over that. And I think Rose will help some with that, but I ultimately don't think that they will lead to an actual romantic relationship.
So like those, I actually think weren't super far off. Let me explain a little bit, maybe not for Finn, but the general, they kind of had the idea of there were other stormtroopers that had fled. I kind of thought that Finn maybe would have been their inspiration, and when they met, they would have been like, oh my gosh, you're the one that left. There wasn't that, but kind of the idea is there of he's now the leader of these former First Order members. And him inspiring the masses it was almost there. That was Lando. Lando went and got everybody, and they had the whole thing of people are afraid, and once one person stands up to the bully, everyone will. Which Lando took that, which I'm a little still upset about. I think that should have been Finn. I think that would have been a great character arc of him rallying people as opposed to running away. And I also got Rose way off because they decided that nobody liked Rose and we're not going to have her in this movie. I think Finn could have been a lot more dynamic and mattered a lot more to the story. I kind of liked how early on in the actual movie he was kind of a mediator between Poe and Rey, and that didn't last, and so his role kind of felt weird throughout all of it. Plus, we never found out his whole, what's the secret for Rey? What is it? Why is that there? Why mention it and not tell us when it's supposed to be the conclusion to the whole story?
So before I get into the big dogs, which is our two force wielders of Rey and Kylo Ren, some of the auxiliary characters I kind of already mentioned. I think Leia's going to pass pretty early on. I think they're going to probably play it off as some sort of disease of she's going to try. I think it'll be very early on, and she's going to get a lot of her connections from the Republic that's now disbanded. I think she still has enough connections that when they're building up Finn to become this hero and this icon, those connections are really going to start it. So that's how she'll have her influence in the movie, and then she'll gracefully pass. It'll be a big moment because everyone already said bye to her, and then she passes later on, and they won't even probably realize it until the end and the kind of the conclusion. I think R2 will be fine, but I think C-3PO, I did see the one trailer where he does the line of looking at my friends one last time. I think they're going to do a similar move that they did in Solo with having the robot kind of join with the Millennium Falcon. I think they're going to do that with C-3PO, but they're specifically going to do it with the final machine that they're going to run into, which again, when I talk about Rey, I'm going to get more into details about that, but I think C-3PO's role in that is he's going to enable them to move throughout that facility more so than just a normal protocol droid would.
I actually like what they did with Leia better than what I had predicted. I really like the fact that she officially dispersed into like the Jedi dust at the same time that Kylo did, because there was a nice thing of like, no, she reached out and put some of herself into Ben, and that's part of what made him turn. I think that was actually kind of for what the footage they had of Leia, I think that was actually a really cool way of doing that, and I liked it. C-3PO, what I said was way better. I hate the memory wipe. There's no reason. He gets it back. There was 0 point to it. Why was that there? They could have just said, no, it was locked and now it's unlocked and you can read Sith data, and it made 0 difference to the story or anything. It was just a trailer-made moment, and I hate it.
So ultimately, I think Rey's story is going to be the biggest part of this film. I think they're going to discover that there is a mass weapon of some sorts that Emperor Palpatine kind of left as a contingency plan. that is on Jakku, which would explain why there was even downed Star Destroyers there in the first place. That why would the First Order have had that conflict with the rebellion there if there wasn't something there to defend in the first place? So they're going to go through discovery and then realize, hey, that's where we have to go. And the entire time it's going to build towards this place having some significance to Rey's upbringing / past. Maybe Emperor Palpatine had something to do with it. I think there's going to be hints of Darth Plagueis the Wise kind of maybe created Anakin before out of the Force, and maybe Palpatine's doing it now. But ultimately, I think all of that's just there to throw us off. But I think they are going to build towards it. And so ultimately, I think that final base / machine, they're going to be in a race with the First Order to get to it. And they're obviously going to arrive there at almost the same time. Probably the Resistance gets there first, and then the First Order afterwards. And that's when Poe does his whole tactical thing of, hey, no, most of us are going to escape and live to fight another day while we're going to become a distraction, while they don't realize that we've now put C-3PO into the base to kind of impede the First Order's progress and help Rey, and I don't know if necessarily Finn will be with her, but they're going to try and get to the core to try and destroy this place, and Rey obviously is going to be searching still for her past. Ultimately, I think what's going to happen though is then Kylo Ren's going to show up. He's obviously going to have a newfound identity, having rebuilt his mask back, and now in charge of the entire First Order. There's no one there to question him. But he's also going to be curious about, what did Palpatine leave behind? Nobody's told him about this to this point. And when his squadron eventually gets there, I think he's going to be the one that ultimately kills Poe, just to do another bad guy's the real bad guy jab. But Rey and Kylo will reach the kind of the core at the very end, in which is where you discover that the entire facility is a cloning facility. It's some really cool technology that the Camino had that Palpatine wanted to keep for himself. And the entire time it's going to do a slight build-up to make you think that maybe Rey is just a clone. Maybe she's just, the reason she's unknown is because there's so many of her and that Palpatine just was creating a mass army of her, but I think that's going to be wrong. I think it's going to be a cloning facility, but of trying to recreate Anakin. I think he's trying to make an entire army of Vaders, obviously slightly toned down so we could always control them. And I think the fact that Kylo is going to be there and see that they're trying to recreate Vader is just going to enrage him and almost turn him with Rey so that they both want to destroy the facility. That's going to be the climactic end, is that there's going to be these sort of grotesque clones because they haven't quite gotten it right yet because they don't have the Camino. Somewhere in this conflict is where they had the epiphany of light and dark doesn't necessarily mean good and evil. You can use light and dark in a mixture, because Rey and Kylo will be able to work so well together, and especially Kylo's going to have this moment where everything's going to click and he's going to use light powers and dark powers and everything to just destroy these clones and the entire facility. And I think that's where Kylo is going to die. He's going to also sacrifice himself to get Rey out, and they have a nice sweet moment of Rey kind of calling him Ben, telling him that you really are a Skywalker, and he's going to say, no, I'm a Solo, which I think would just be a sweet send-off for the character, finally kind of completing that arc of fighting between the light and the dark, that he just ultimately is in a balance. And so what's the fallout? What's the fallout of all of this? I think the ultimate reason for it calling the Rise of Skywalker is not only the rise of Ben Skywalker kind of becoming now the sort of hero of the story, but I think it's the death of the Skywalker line. I think with all those clones gone and with Ben dead and Leia, everyone, nobody having to do with the Skywalkers will be alive anymore. But there will be a new understanding of the Force. I think there will still be Jedi and Sith. Rey is going to create almost a school system of there's no one right way of doing it, because that was the issue with the Jedi in the prequels, is they were too much of almost a government and too powerful to that they became blind. And so now it'll be smaller schools saying, no, we do a little bit more dark, we rely a little bit more on this emotion. It's okay for you to feel emotions as long as you know how to deal with them. And I think ultimately what's going to happen is Rey is going to create a new term of, they're like, okay, well, what do we call these Force users? If they're not a Jedi or they're not a Sith, they're going to be a Skywalker. And so I think it's going to be a bunch of Skywalker academies. Not, again, following the same rule. There's going to be one of Rey, and I think the sweet part is there's going to be Rey's academy is going to be it and the Knights of Ren, I think, are going to be the two academies that kind of start it. And the Knights of Ren will be one where it's like, they're made of people who aren't highly in tune with the Force. It's light Force users. And how can we best utilize that? And Rey's is going to be more of a heavy Force user side. And the Force is going to be in a balanced state because it's no longer at war with itself. It's going to have a bunch of different systems trying to utilize it best for whatever application they need. And Skywalker is going to be the new term for Force users, thus the rise of Skywalker, and the entire point of the Skywalker line bringing balance to the Force is that ultimately they're the ones that caused this. So that's where I think it's going to leave it.
The Emperor facility isn't too far off. There was some sort of cloning involved, I think, with Snoke. I think that's what Snoke was, is he was supposed to be clones. That's why they had that Bacta tank full of him. But ultimately, I think it was just for him to be a puppet, not to try and recreate almost like a body for him to transfer to. And Kylo did have that motivation of, no, I want to destroy this. That's why he was there originally. Then that changed. Obviously, I got what happened way off there with the whole forming of the light and dark. Nah, the light's just better, which I was unsatisfied with at the time. But the more I've thought about it, the more I like the message. No matter who you are, you can find the light and the good within you and you can turn to it. It also makes all of the weird buildup between Rey and Kylo kind of work. The whole dyad thing is freaking awesome. I think that's super cool. And that Rey kind of has all these yearnings for the dark side. They were more warnings when I thought that they were supposed to be kind of hints that maybe it's not that bad, which is just something I misinterpreted through the first two movies, and maybe they decided to change the meaning of it here in the third movie, which Lord knows they changed a lot of things from movie to movie on a whim. But I like that message. So the fact that Rey is a Palpatine kind of really fits into that message, and the fact that Ben comes back from the dark side. I hate that they kissed. That was the ugliest. That was, why was that there? Ugh. So yeah, I would say my predictions were mediocre and predictability. Whatever. I was an idiot. I didn't see the movie yet. I was just spewing crap, but sometimes when you're spewing crap, you come up with stuff that's probably better than what the filmmakers actually made. Wait, actually, what if I could come up with something better than what they did? What if I rewrote Star Wars?